Chapter 4. They were all in good health. It could not be called ill health if Ilych sometimes said he had a queer taste in his mouth and felt some discomfort in his left side. But this discomfort increased, and though not exactly painful, grew into a sense of pressure in the side, accompanied by ill humor. And his irritability became worse and worse and began to mar the agreeable, easy, and quick life that had established itself in the Glovin family. Quarrels between husband and wife became more and more frequent, and soon the ease and amity disappeared, and even the decorum was barely maintained. Sins again became frequent, and very few of those islets remained on which husband and wife could meet without an explosion. Praskovia Fedorovna now had good reason to see that her husband's temper was trying. With a characteristic exaggeration, she said it always had a dreadful temper, and that it had needed all her good nature to put up with it for 20 years. It was true that now the quarrels were started by him. His burst of temper always came just before dinner, often just as he began to eat his soup. Sometimes he noticed that a plate or dish was chipped. All the food was not right. Or his son put his elbow on the table, or his daughter's hair was not done as he liked it. Or for this he blamed Praskovia Fedorovna. At first she retorted and said disagreeable things to him, but once or twice he fell into such a rage at the beginning of dinner that she realized it was due to some physical derangements brought on by taking food, so she restrained herself and did not answer, but only hurried to get the dinner over. She regarded this self-restraint as highly praiseworthy. Having come to the conclusion that her husband had a dreadful temper and made her life miserable, she began to feel sorry for herself, and the more she pitied herself, the more she hated her husband. She began to wish he would die, yet she did not want him to die, because then his salary would cease, and this irritated her against him still more. She considered herself dreadful and unhappy just because not even his death could save her. And though she concealed her exasperation, that hidden exasperation of hers increased his irritation also. At one scene which Ilych had been particularly unfair, and after which he had said in explanation that he certainly was irritable, but that it was due to his not being well, she said that he, if were ill, it should be attended to, and insist on his going to see a celebrated doctor. He went. Everything took place as he had expected it, and it always does. There was the usual reading and the important air assumed by the doctor, with which he was so familiar, resembling that which he himself assumed in court, and the sounding, the listening, and the questions which called for answers that were foregone conclusions and were evidently unnecessary, and the look of importance which implied that if only you put yourself in our hands, we'll arrange everything. We know indubitably how it has to be done, always in the same way for everybody alike. It was all just as it was in the law courts. The doctor put on the same air towards him as he himself put on towards an accused person. The doctor said that so and so indicated that there was a so and so inside the patient, but if the investigation of so and so did not confirm this, then he must assume that it and that. If he assumes that and that, then and so on. To Ilych, only one question was important: was his case serious or not? But the doctor ignored that inappropriate question. From his point of view, it was not the one under consideration. The real question was to decide between a floating Kennedy, chronic cadra, and appendices. Apprentices. Appendi, appendices. 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 I don't know how to pronounce this word, sorry. Apprentices, apprentice, I don't know. Appendicitis, I don't know. It was not a question of Ilych life or death, but the one between a floating cannon and appenditis. This is repeating, obviously. Sorry. And that doctor solved brilliantly as they listened to Ilych in favor of the appendix. 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 Okay. And the reservation that it should examination of the urine give fresh indications the matter would be reconsidered. All this was just what Ilych and himself brilliantly accomplished 1,000 times in dealing with men on trial. The doctor summed up just as brilliantly, looking over his spectacles triumphantly and even gaily at the accused. From the doctor summing up, Ilych concluded that things were bad, but that for the doctor and perhaps for everybody else, it was a matter of indifference. So for him, it was a bad. And this conclusion struck him painfully, arousing in him a great feeling of pity for himself, and a bitterness towards the doctor's indifference to a matter of such importance. He said nothing of this, but arose, placed Dr. Fay on the table, and remarked with a sigh, "We sick people probably often put improper questions, but tell me, in general, is this complaint dangerous or not?" The doctor looked at him sternly over his spectacles with one eye, as if to say, "Prisoner, if you will not keep to the question put to you, I shall be obliged to have you removed from the court. I have already told you what I consider necessary and proper. The analysis may show something more." The doctor bowed. Ilych went out slowly, seated himself disconsolately in his sledge, and drove home. All the way home, he was going over what the doctor had said, trying to translate those complicated, obscure, scientific phrases into plain language that found in them an answer to the question, is my condition bad? Is it very bad? Or is there as yet nothing more wrong? And it seemed to him that the meaning of what the doctor had said was that it was very bad. Everything in the street seems depressing. The cabmen, the horses, the passers-by, and the shops were dismal. His ache, this dull, gnawing ache that never ceased for a moment, seemed to have acquired a new and a more serious significance from the Dr. Duber's remarks. Ivan Ilych now watched it with a new and oppressive feeling. He reached home and began to tell his wife about it. She listened, but in the middle of his account, his daughter came in with her hand out, ready to go on with her mother. She sat down, reluctant to listen to this tedious story, but could not stand it long, and her mother, too, did not hear him to the end. "Well, I'm very glad," she said. "Might not to take your medicine regularly. Give me the prescription. I will send geranium to the chemist's. and she went to get ready to go out. When she was in the room, Ilych had hardly taken time to breathe, and he sighed deeply when he left it. Well, he thought, Pampers wasn't so bad after all. He began taking his medicine and following the doctor's directions, which had been altered after the examination of the urine. But then it happened that there was a contradiction between the indications drawn from the examination of the urine and the symptoms that showed themselves. It turned out that what was happening differed from what the doctor had told him, and that he had either forgotten or blundered or hidden something from him. He could not, however, be blamed for that, and Yuan Leach still obeyed his order implicitly, and at first derived some comfort from doing so. From the time of his visit to the doctor, Yuan Lich's chief occupation was the exact fulfillment of the doctor's instructions regarding hygiene and the taking of medicine and the observation of his pain and his excretions. Its chief interest came to be people's ailments and people's health. When sickness, deaths, or recoveries were mentioned in his presence, especially when the illness resembled his own, he lessened his agitation, which he tried to hide, asked questions, and applied what he heard to his own case. The pain did not grow less, but Yuan Lich made effort to force himself to think that he was better. He could do this so long as nothing agitated him, but as soon as he had any unpleasantness with his wife, any lack of success in his official work, or held bank cards and bridge, he was at once acutely sensible of his disease. He had formerly borne such mischances, hoping soon to judge what was wrong, to master its attain success, to make a grand slam. But now every mischance upset him and plunged him into despair. He would say to himself, "There now, just as I was beginning to get better, and the medicine had begun to take effect, comes this accursed misfortune, all unpleasantness." And he was furious with the mishap, or with the people who were causing the unpleasantness and killing him. For he felt, excuse me, for he felt that this fury was killing him, but he could not restrain it. One could have thought that it should have been clear to him that this exasperation with the circumstances and people aggravated his illness, and that he ought therefore to ignore unpleasant occurrences. But he draws a very opposite conclusion. He said that he needed peace, and he watched for everything that might disturb it, and became irritable at the slightest infringement of it. His condition was rendered worse by the fact that he read medical books and consulted doctors. The progress of his disease was so grandiose that he could deceive himself when comparing one day with another. The difference was so slight. But when he consulted the doctor, it seemed to him that he was getting worse, and even more rapidly. Yet despite this, he was continually consulting them. That month he went to see another celebrity who told him almost the same as the first had done, but put his questions rather differently. And the interview with this celebrity only increased Ilan Lich's doubts and fears. A friend of his, were a good doctor, diagnosed his illness again quite differently from the others, and though he predicted recovery, his questions and suppositions bewildered Ivan Ilyich still more and increased his doubts. A homeopathist diagnosed the disease in yet another way and prescribed medicine which Ivan Ilyich took secretly for a week, but after a week, not feeling any improvement and having lost the confidence both in the former doctor's treatment and in this one's, he became still more despondent. One day a lady acquaintance mentioned a cure effected by a wonder-working icon. Ilych caught himself listening attentively and beginning to believe that it had occurred. This incident alarmed him. Has my mind really weakened to such an extent? He asked himself. Nonsense. It's all rubbish. I must I mustn't give way to nervous fears, but I haven't chosen. A doctor must keep strictly to his treatment. That is what I will do. Now it is all settled. I won't think about it, but will follow the treatment seriously till summer, and then we shall see. For now, there must be no more of this wavering. This was easy to say, but impossible to carry out. The pain in his side oppressed him, and it seemed to grow worse and worse incessant, while the taste in his mouth grew stronger, stranger and stranger. It seemed to him that his breath had a disgusting smell, and was conscious of a loss of appetite and his strength. There was no deceiving himself. Something terrible, new, and more important than anything before in his life was taking place within him, of which he alone was aware. Those about him did not understand or would not understand it, but they thought everything in the world was going on as usual. That tormented Ilych more than anything else. He saw that his household, especially his wife and daughter, who were in a perfect whirl of visiting, did not understand anything of it, or were annoyed that he was so depressed and so exacting, as if he were to blame for it. Though they tried to disguise it, he saw that he was an obstacle in their path, and that his wife had adopted a definite line in regard to his illness to keep to it regardless of anything he said or did. Her attitude was this: he would say to her friends, you Ilych can do as other people do and keep to the treatment prescribed for him. One he would take these drops to keep strictly to this his diet and go to bed in good time, but the next day, unless I watch him, he will suddenly forget his medicine, eat sturgeon, which is forbidden, and sit up playing cards till 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh, come, when was that? Ilych would ask in vexation. Only once, and Peter Ivanovich's. And yesterday, with the shebek. Well, even if I hadn't stayed up, this pen would have kept him awake. Be that as it may, you all never forget. You will not get better like that, but it will always make us rich. Praskovia Fedorovna's attitude to Ilyich's illness, as she expressed it both to others and to him, was that it was his own fault, and was another of the annoyances he caused her. Even Ilych felt that his opinion escaped her involuntarily, but it did not make it easier for him. In the lower court, too, Ivan Illich noticed and sought to notice a strange attitude towards himself. It sometimes seemed to him that the people were watching him inquisitively as a man whose place might soon to be vacant. Then again his friends would suddenly begin to chaff him in a friendly way about his low spirits, as if the awful, horrible, and unheard of thing that was going on within him, incessantly gnawing at him and irresistibly drawing him away, was a very agreeable subject for jests. Skewalds, in particular, irritated him by his jocularity, vivacity, and savoir-faire, which reminded him of what he himself had been 10 years ago. Friends came to make up a set as they sat down to cards. They dealt, bending the new card to soften them, and he sorted the diamonds in his hand and found he had 7. His partner said, "No trumps," and supported him with 2 diamonds. What more could it be wished for? It ought to be jolly and lively. They would make a grand slam, but suddenly when Ilych was conscious of that a gnawing pain then taste in his mouth, and it seemed ridiculous that in such circumstances he should be placed to make a grand slam. He looked at his partner, Milk Hollowich, who raped the table with a strong hand, and instead of snatching up the tricks, pushed the cards courteously, indulgently towards Ilych, that he might have the pleasure of gathering them up without the trouble of stretching out his hand for them. Does he think I'm too weak to stretch out my arm? Thought Ivan Ilyich, and forgetting what he was doing, he over-trumped his partner, missing the grand slam by 3 tricks. Now, what was most awful of all was that he saw how upset Mikhail Mikhailovich was about it, but did not himself care. And it was dreadful to realize why he did not care. They all saw that it was something. Stop. If you're tired, take a rest. Lie down. No, he was not at all tired, and he finished the rubber. All were gloomy and silent. Even later felt that he had diffused this gloom over them and could not dispel it. They had a supper and went away, and even Lynch was left alone with the consciousness that his life was poisoned and was poisoning the lives of others, and that his poison not weakened, but it penetrated more and more deeply into his whole being. With this consciousness and with a physical pain beside the terror, he must go to bed, often to lie awake the greater part of the night. Next morning, and to get up again, dress, go to the law courts, speak, and write. Or if he did not go out, spend at home those 24 hours a day, each of which was a torture, and handily thus, all alone on the brink of another base, with no one who understood